5D, Paisley. Fenton came to wake us bright and early, moaning about breakfast and getting answers. It was a beautiful morning. The sun seemed to shine particularly bright through the sheer curtains covering the windows. The birds chittered gaily as they chased each other around the trees. I hopped up, eager to speak with Grandfather about his decision on my schooling. "Let's get a move on, woman," Fenton insisted. Alira rose groggily from her slumber, no doubt drained from the bad dream that woke her in the night. She quickly grabbed her dressing gown upon seeing Fenton and shooed him from the room. "What are you doing letting that scoundrel in our room, Paisley? It is inappropriate for a boy to be in a lady's room," Alira instructed. "It wasn't like I invited him, Alira. He came unannounced before I woke, just as you. He is hungry and really wants us to speak with Grandfather." It was clear my words were lost on Alira, and she hurriedly took to dressing and doing up her hair. "I think you missed a spot," I teased, seeing the care that she took to pin up her hair so nicely. "I don't think Fenton will even notice your hair, though." "What?" She turned on me quickly as her face flushed with embarrassment. "Why would I care what that fool thinks of my hair anyways?" "Oh, I don't know, Alira," I chided, though she continued to flip her head about, examining her handiwork. "Quit your fussing. You look fine. Let's go already." We finished dressing and headed straight to the dining room for breakfast. Grandfather, Fenton, and Miss Annabelle were already seated and waiting for us when we arrived. Marin was helping to serve out everyone's sausages, and Griella sat in the corner cradling Cadence with a warm bottle of milk. I could feel the eyes on me from all about the room as I took my seat. "Good morning, ladies," came Grandfather's greeting. "I see we are sleeping in this morning." "Sorry, Grandfather," I managed to reply. "It was a rough night," I stated, eyeing Alira solemnly. "We are ready now and apologize for our tardiness." Grandfather cleared his throat, ready to talk. The room became instantly hushed as all, including the staff, were awaiting his response. "I've come to my decision," he started, "and I've decided to let you investigate this tutelage further, though there will be no use of your powers allowed in this house. Furthermore, you are to continue your training with Mr. Thorne and other instructors at the Cove with Miss Norfolk and Fenton. When you go to the school, I would like to accompany you to make sure it is a good fit for myself." "Can Fenton and I come with you as well?" Alira asked. "If it is okay with Miss Annabelle, that is." "Can I come, Mama? That would be the best," Fenton added. "If it is all right with Mr. Ogg, it is fine by me, darling," Miss Annabelle stated. Grandfather pondered the request a moment as he chewed his sausages. He finished off his meal and drank down his dandelion tea. He stared straight into Fenton's eyes as he spoke. "All must be on their best behavior if we are to be going to this establishment." "Yes, sir, I will be on my best behavior. You will barely know I am there." "Well then, bring me the details of our trip, and I will make us ready to go at the end of the week. We can't interrupt your schooling for this trip," Grandfather finished. We finished off breakfast and made for the garden before our trip back to Siren Cove. Alira instantly began fawning over her herbs and flora while still engaging in our conversation about the upcoming trip. I sat on the bench, not really interested in the plants surrounding us, but casually examining the bushel of herbs that was picked. The garden thrived with life of all kinds. Even the creatures were out and about without a care in the world. Bees buzzed around, pollinating everything in sight. Birds sang songs, and critters scurried about collecting nuts for winter. I wondered if the critters had noticed the change in the season like the rest of us had. I picked up a flower from the bushel, not realizing the bee that rested upon it, and was stung for my ignorance. "Ouch!" I whimpered, staring at the little red dot on my palm. I watched as it immediately started to swell, then panicked. My hand immediately swelled to twice its size. The pain throbbed throughout my whole body, and red patches started to appear along my skin. My tongue started to tingle, and I was having difficulty swallowing. Breathing seemed strenuous as Alira and Fenton attempted to give aid. "Quick, Fenton," Alira snapped. "Fetch your mother." Fenton ran off to the house as Alira scurried about in the garden, pulling various weeds and placing them by my side. Miss Annabel arrived shortly thereafter, carrying various implements. She set to inserting a straw down the throat to allow air into the lungs, then turned to speak with Alira. Alira, who had already acquired a rather large pile of herbs, was frantically pruning her collection of herbs and handing them over to Miss Annabel. A mixture of herbs was ground into a powder as I lay slumped to one side on the bench. At this point, I could breathe a little better, but could barely contain my hysteria. As the hysteria grew, I noticed the garden seemed to wilt, then wither and die. The voices around me grew puzzled and hushed momentarily, then turned back to my condition. The spices were then brought to me and rubbed into my gums while another healing agent was administered to the sting on my hand. It wasn't clear how long I lay there, listening to the beating of my own heart and drifting slowly into oblivion. I came to with pain coursing through every muscle in my body, though the swelling in my tongue had lessened and I could breathe on my own again. As my anxiety dissipated, I noticed colors seemed to spring up all around me. Plants sprang back up with renewed life. Voices became less muffled, and I could focus on my surroundings again. "Welcome back, darling," came Miss Annabel's voice. "You gave us quite a scare." "I thought you were a goner for sure," Fenton said, eyeing me worriedly. "What happened to me?" I asked weakly, finally able to speak. It felt raw and painful to do so. "Oh, honey, it seems you have had a reaction to bees. It is not uncommon. Luckily, Alira knew enough about herbs to gather you up the correct remedy in time. That's a remarkable talent for one so young. Did your mother teach you that?" Miss Annabel asked. "Some," Alira commented, "and some I picked up on my own. Thank goodness you're okay now, Paisley," Alira added, turning to me again. "Did you see what just happened here?" I tried to focus my memory as I sat back up, looking down disgustedly at my chubby little hand. I knew something had happened, but I just couldn't put my mind to it quite yet. I sat there, quiet a moment, trying to pull it all together. "I think you killed the whole garden, Paisley, then brought it back to life," Alira announced. "The garden died as you lay there out of sorts, then sprung back to life as you regained your composure. I wonder what this means. Can you harness the power of Earth also?" I didn't know what to say. I stared down at the back of my swollen hand, and sure enough, my magical tattoo was dimly lit with the image of the sun. "I don't know, Alira," I answered coarsely. "Let us worry about that another time, children," Miss Annabel advised. "We should get Paisley back to the house for now." Grandfather was waiting for us when we arrived, looking a little shaken. He hurried over to us and embraced me in a big hug. It was the first time he had shown me any kind of affection in the months since we arrived at the manor. It was unusual, and yet I allowed myself to dig deep into the embrace. Maybe he wasn't so bad after all. After regaining most of my strength and discussing the latest events with Grandfather, it was decided that the venture to find a suitable school for myself was even more important. Grandfather offered to extend our stay another night, though Miss Annabel assured him that the worst was over, and she had all that she needed should another episode arise. Thanks to Alira, I had an ample supply of ephedra, as she called it. I would need to keep some handy should an emergency come up again. We stayed at the manor for lunch, and then prepared for our trip back to the cove. Alira packed several snacks for us, curiously choosing Fenton's favorites for the selection, though at the moment all I could put my mind to was the trip to the tutelage. I couldn't believe grandfather had allowed such a decision, but I was not about to question my good fortune, though I knew now that grandfather was not as bad as I had thought. Miss Annabel brought the cart around, calling to Fenton and I as we said our goodbyes to everyone, knowing that in a week's time we would be traveling together. And investigating Omega's school was enough to keep the sorrow from creeping in this time. I gave Cadence a little kiss goodbye and Alira a short hug. Then we were away.